Hello, everyone, and welcome to another virtual Mysterious Galaxy event. I am Nick, a bookseller and digital marketer for Mysterious Galaxy. Hi, everyone. We have some wonderful science fiction and fantasy YA books for you, as well as their authors. We have Rebecca Coffindaffer, Alechia Dow, Meg Long, and Claire Winn. Now, we also have to discuss their books. Rebecca's latest book, Throne Breakers, I'm probably mirrored, I don't know how to fix that, I apologize, is the second and final book in their Crown Chasers duology. Now, since I don't have the book because we're doing pre-orders for it yet, we have also Alecia's book, The Kindred, which is releasing January 11th. Yeah, thank you, Alechia, of next year, and we're doing pre-orders for it. Next, we have Meg's book, which I also don't have, but Meg does, yes. Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves, also releasing on the same day, January the 11th, and we're also doing pre-orders for that. Hello, everyone. Hi, Tiffany. Lastly, but not least, we have City of Shattered Light. It is, sorry, I got tongue-tied there. It's a lot to say with the S's. Meg's, City of Shattered Light, which is out now. Now, for everyone that wants to pre-order these books or buy them, even better, we are doing signed and personalized book plates. So if you go down below, there is the green button that says buy books and get signed personalized book plates. If you get books by Rebecca, Claire, or Meg, they will either do signed and or personalized book plates for you. You just go ahead in the comment section and say what personalizations you want within reason. And then Alechia will be doing signed book plates for her book. And since we have a lot of books, I'm going to leave and jump off and let these authors discuss them and their writing styles. And don't forget, lastly, if you have any questions that you want to ask, click the Ask a Question below and go ahead and post your questions. All right, without further ado, I'm going to disappear and pop back in later. If I can find my
Thanks, Nick.
Toggle.
Okay. Yay! I'm so excited to see all your faces and to talk sci-fi. It's one of my favorite things. Nick did a great job with all the titles. Maybe real quick, do we all just kind of want to go on and give the quick pitch, or are we tired of pitching? Are we tired of quick pitching our book at this point?
I mean,
I think we should do a quick pitch. Yeah. Let's okay. Sell something shiny. How about this? Quick pitch of your book and your favorite character to write in that book. Not necessarily your favorite one that to write. And I'm going to kind of go like this on my screen, which means we're starting with Alechia. You're right above me, Brady Bunch style.
Hello. Okay, that's a really tough question. You know that.
Oh,
you know that going in.
I know. I'm sorry. I started you off rough.
Okay, so I wrote The Sound of Stars, which is about a rebel teen librarian and a music-loving alien on a road trip to possibly save humanity. And I'm not picking a favorite for that one since I'm talking about The Kindred anyway. The Kindred, which is well, I have not come up with a good one-line pitch for this one yet. So it's going to be like, okay, so a mind-link duke and commoner are accused of murdering the royal family. They flee home, crash land on Earth, and have to find a way back home, find a way to save their kingdom, and find out what they mean to each other. And it is
good.
Thank you. My brain sometimes. It is very fun and really happy, and I love all of the characters, so please don't make me choose one. But if I had to, I would say there's a character named Rashid who is just like a bundle of joy. Not to be confused with Joy, who is also a bundle of joy. Yep, that's a weird sentence, and we're just gonna skip to the next verse. Let me just get over here.
All right, clockwise is Meg Long, for at least on my screen.
So this is my book. I'm Meg. The book is Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves.
In a short pitch, it is basically a sci-fi reimagining of the Iditarod sled dog race. Sort of meets Julie of the Wolves, set on an ice planet like Hoth. It's kind of insane. And a little bit of Mad Max thrown in there too. My favorite character is one of the side characters that is everybody's favorite character. Her name is Remy. She just sort of like gets stuff done. She shows up. She doesn't let Senna, the main character, is very grouchy all the time and doesn't really like people, but Remy doesn't care. So they make a great duo.
That's awesome. Claire, your turn.
Hello. Oh my God, yes it is. I wrote City of Shattered Light. It is a Publisher's Weekly announcement called it a combination of Guardians of the Galaxy and Escape from New York. It is a queer found family story about an heiress who flees home to save her test subject sister, and she ends up falling in with a team of smugglers on an outlaw planet, and they have to evade a monstrous AI that locks down the planet in pursuit of Asa, the heiress main character. So it's a lot about the relationship between the two of them and the found family that they find.
Favorite character to write?
Riven's perspective is a lot of fun just because she grabs the plot by the throat and does not let go and makes terrible decisions, and it's so much fun. But I also really enjoy one of the side characters is not quite a villain. She's an anti-heroine who is a bounty hunter named Morphet Slade, who is just tiny, unassuming, but absolutely unflappable and terrifying, and she is so much fun to write in scenes that she's in.
Time for a Morphet Slade spinoff, I think.
Yeah, I have a lot of people say that, and I'm seriously considering it because she's so fun.
Yes, we stand an anti-hero, heroine, anywhere on the gender spectrum of anti plus them. Okay, I guess it's my turn. I did not think to grab. I have copies of my book. I didn't think to grab them. My name is Rebecca Coffindaffer. I wrote the Crown Chasers duology, which is Crown Chasers, which came out last year, and Thronebreakers, which just came out recently, about a disaster space pilot named Alyssa Farshot and her loyal engineer Hellmonkey as they get wrapped up in imperial politics and a race for the crown and a side of revolution, but also maybe just disaster queers, is kind of just the big sort of smoosh there. My favorite character to write in that, I mean, the main character is a lot of fun, but I think my favorite non-main character is the duo of Faye Orso and her girlfriend Honor Winger, who are just, they're space pirates, and they just sort of are like, yeah, sure, this works for us right now, but also, does it benefit us? And so they were a lot of fun to write in both. So yeah, that would be my answer. So I was trying to come up with some questions and thoughts that I had for you lovely people. And I think, of course, the usual one that comes up first is why sci-fi? And I think it comes up a lot because it is, it's a genre that is not maybe as, it seems weird to not call it as flashy because we're writing different worlds and some of them are drenched in neon and cool cyberpunk stuff, but it's not,
it's mainstream.
It's just a little more niche. So why sci-fi for you guys? I don't want to put anyone on the spot, so I'm just going to throw that question out there and let whoever feels like they want to answer it first go.
I can go. I think. What have I done? No, I love fantasy as well, and I read a lot of fantasy. And actually, my original kernel of an idea of a girl dog sled racing through this dangerous tundra started as a fantasy idea. I was like, it'll be like an ice world and there'll be magic. And I just, no matter how many times I tried to write it, it didn't work. I don't know why I find magic very limiting, but I do to write, not to read. And then when I decided to try and make it sci-fi, literally it just fell into place and took me 3 months to write. So it was amazing. And I feel for me, sci-fi, I feel it's just limitless. You can be super dark. You can be super fun and light. You can just do almost anything anything you can do in fantasy, you can do in sci-fi, but I just find it way more engaging. I'm not really sure why, so maybe that's not a great answer, but I guess it's just because you get to just kind of play with science. You don't have to worry about creating a magic system, which can be very complex and hard and intimidating. So kudos to all the fantasy authors doing that. I just find it so much more freeing to write within like the realm of science fiction. Heavy on the fiction, not on the science.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I think that sci-fi is interesting because it's just so dynamic, because every few years it's like our paradigms for what's going to be possible in the future and our visions for the future are constantly changing. And even now, especially, I feel like writing cyberpunk is so intimidating because every few years something comes out and it's like, oh, we've made this rapid progress with brain tech interfaces now. And it's like, oh, wow, this is going to happen a lot sooner than the future that I've been predicting in my books. And I think it's really interesting because we can use sci-fi to kind of extrapolate from a number of things that are happening now and think about, okay, what's going to happen if we don't do this about climate change or this big issue, or what's going to happen if technology evolves in this manner. So it's really, I think it is dynamic in that you can't have explored these themes in the past because they just become relevant as our future, as our vision for the future and our horizons change. So you have, and like, I think that stuff like cyberpunk, for me at least, is really compelling because a lot of these futures that were predicted in like the 80s at the advent of the genre are kind of becoming a reality. And all these themes I think are important to explore in YA because as technology advances, we have new issues come up with regard to like privacy, data privacy, body image, how we interact with technology, who controls the information we receive. And I think that especially young adults and young women especially are going to be really impacted by all that. And I think that that's why young adult sci-fi is really interesting to me.
I love sci-fi. I think I should just want to start off there. I fell in love with sci-fi very early. I was right into X-Men comics. That was the kind of the gateway for me when I went to the library in my town. And I loved it because it was an exploration of civil rights in a very, very clever way that made a lot of sense to anybody who had who was looking for it, yeah, but who might have felt on the fringe of that. So I loved that growing up, and being able to do that now and kind of within the parameters of sci and fi. And I always say that my books are more fi than sci. But the sci is what keeps me grounded. The sci is like, I know where my limits are and I know what I can create within that. And that could be a lot. It could be as however much I want to do. And I think you can add a little fantasy in when you're doing worlds and you're building whole universes, which Rebecca knows very well. And it's really, really fun, but you still have to have these kind of, these limits. There are little limits there where you're like, okay, I can do this, but how do I make this in a way that's going to be accessible? And so I'm constantly thinking about accessibility when I'm writing science fiction. That said, the idea that I get to write science fiction about teens, for teens, is a huge honor because they are doing all these amazing things. They're thinking big things. They're ambitious. They're doing a lot. And we get to do that in sci-fi. And we get to take the things that are going on in the world and kind of be like, hey, maybe there's a solution or maybe there isn't. What if it's dystopian? What are you going to do? I just love that. And I think it's a great, great, great opportunity to kind of explore solutions to problems we don't know yet. And then also at the same time kind of explore the issues that we're dealing with right now in a totally new way that might change some perspectives. And again, I also really love sci-fi because I can look at civil rights, I can look at diversity, I can do all of this, and I don't have to answer as to why. I can just do it, and you can like it or you don't have to. It is what it is, but I don't have to feel anything of being like, I'm going to make an entire diverse cast and everybody's going to be queering. There's nothing you can do about it. So I can just do that and there's nothing they can say. So I'm a huge fan of that.
I like that you're just like, I did all these things. Don't ask me about it. I will be taking no questions. That's excellent. No, I agree though. Like, I think what's great about science fiction is sort of this, yeah, I recognize pieces of all of your guys' answers in my own. It's this idea of being able to, especially right now, look at the world and everything that is scary and throw a prism on it that lets me sort of work through that anxiety and project into, usually what I do is to project into like let's pretend we can actually find our way out of this, like project into a better future. But because you throw that prism on it of like, I'm looking at it through science fiction, I can like function, versus if I were writing contemporary, which I find is so powerful, and I so respect contemporary writers, but I can't do it because it's too immediate and it gets so close so fast, and I'm just like, I can't, like, I need that space. So yeah, I think there's a lot of power in that. And I think there's a lot of power in so much of science fiction is future focused. Like, even Star Wars is technically a long time ago, but like it really is, you're looking forward constantly with this genre. And I think that is extremely powerful. You can look toward it with hope. You can look toward it with fear, but it's kind of like, I've listened to several people talk recently about how they enjoy horror movies when they are scared because it helps them deal with anxiety. Like, they are anxious, they watch a horror movie, it's this compressed thing. And I feel like that's kind of how I do sci-fi. It's like, I am scared, I'm going to look at this science fiction and sort of deal with some of that. So yeah, that's a lot. So one of the things that I think probably all of us encountered maybe a little bit with science fiction is there is that concern, I think especially in the teen space and the YA space, of science fiction getting too heavy, too sciencey. And so I feel like, and I haven't had the pleasure of reading Cold the Night Fast the Wolves yet, but I know definitely from reading City of Shattered Light and The Kindred and Sound of Shattered Star, or Sound of Stars, bleh, that this is a group that knows how to balance, science fiction elements with character without losing sight of character. And how do you guys approach that in your writing of going, I want to build these sci-fi worlds, but not lose sight of the actual characters that make the story like have a heart? I'm just gonna throw it because I don't want to be all like, you answer, and then you're like, go for it, Claire.
Okay, I can start, or you can if you have an answer in
I
mind.
don't. That's why
That's a really good question, though.
I'm avoiding it.
Okay, so at least this might be just personally how I tend to draft, but I tend to make the tech and the sci-fi elements serve the story rather than the other way around. So I like to start with character. And often as I build the character, I think about what interesting obstacles would be thrown at them, and part of that informs my world building. And it's just kind of a push-pull. All the elements kind of build off each other as I'm starting an outline and starting a concept. But it does always stem from, what's a really big explosive moment for this character? What is the climax of their arc going to look like? How are they going to interact with the other characters? And sometimes the parts that are going to challenge them would be like, okay, this would be really interesting if I threw this at them. It would be really cool if I had this weird speculative element coming at them. And then maybe later it will be me thinking about, okay, how can I make this work in world building? Like, I mentioned this in other interviews, but I was like, it would be really cool if Riven, like my gunslinger, was kind of fighting for power in like this matriarchal underworld. And I hadn't thought to begin with, like, they have this outlaw planet, it's matriarchal now. And then I was like, actually, I can do that. So I had to come up with this whole history and like, what are the speculative elements, and like the mine colony revolution that led to that. And it's just, they all build off each other, but I do try to start with character when I'm world building. So sci-fi elements come later, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I can bounce off that because I agree. When I had this idea of a girl on a dog sled race and I decided to make it sci-fi, I was like, why do they need to do a dog sled race if it's sci-fi and it's on a planet and there are ships? Like, I had to come up with a reason. Otherwise, it's like, this is dumb. So yeah, you figure out like, okay, this is the character, this is what they're doing, this is kind of their journey, and then I built the world around that and made it harder for her and, you know, more challenging every step of the way. And so like the world building for me happens in layers like that. And then even, you know, my first revision, my agent was like, so can you like write more about the economy of this world and how that works? I was like, but I don't know. So like a lot of it you have to like really like think about. And when you start with the character, I think that makes the story so much like so strong, and then you can build on that other stuff. I think a lot of people try and start with the world and then stick a character in it, and I don't know if that's always as impactful. So I agree. I start with the character and make the world really difficult for them.
So with The Sound of Stars, for me, writing is like it's very visual. I have an idea, and I think for The Sound of Stars, I thought it would be really funny to have a girl who has like a locker in a school, and she's kind of giving books away secretly. And it's like really dangerous for some reason. I'm like, why? And then it snowballs into an idea and snowballs, and then next thing you know, it's an alien invasion. Of course, because that's where that was going. When I wrote The Sound of Stars, I tend to go the weird sci-fi way. I think a lot of writers go, which is like, here's what I'm doing. Here are the characters. It's going to be great. And my editor is like, okay, but we need like at least another 10, 15K explaining why you're doing this. And oh, okay, right. I have to explain. So that was the process. For The Kindred, I had this idea of like these two people who are sharing thoughts and they can see each other and they're just talking. And I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. And again, it spiraled into, you know, The Kindred, and it was a lot of fun. I love writing sci-fi because you get to explore these things and you get to like find that balance of world building. I think that world building can be really tricky with sci-fi because that balance is hard with accessibility, and you know that you can't info dump, you can't over explain, and if you ask for extreme explanations as to why someone's name is this in a sci-fi world, then you've already lost the point. So you're going to have to really think about every single element. And for me, when I was writing The Sound of Stars, I got a book. I got like sci-fi, what is it? Physics of superheroes. And so I kind of went through that and read stuff. And I like tonight I was drafting again, and I was like, what is it called when like force is like this and it's pressure? And like looking that up took a really long time. I don't know. I'm kind of playing it by ear. I have like a bachelor's in baking and pastry arts, and I can do food science, but I can't tell you why, like, you know, if an explosion happens near a black hole, that your ship might go in a different way. I don't know. I do now, but I didn't know earlier today. It's really a whole process of just learning as you go. And you're like, okay, now I got to ask a scientist or something because I don't know if that's right. But I'm having a great time. And I think the more you do it, the better you get. And the world you create in your head helps you write different and more stories going forward in the genre.
Yeah. You're so good about actually looking this stuff up, and I'm such a trash fire that I'm just like lasers and I feel like it's like people would be like, what kind of research did you do? I was like, well, I watched Star Wars, and that obviously is very grounded in science. You know, it's very technical. No, I'm definitely much more of a science fantasy person where I was like, this technology exists because I think it sounds cool. I think for me personally, I'm a big outliner and a plotter. So I will do a pretty in-depth outline, but those outlines are all predominantly plot points, right? They're just like, they're here, and it's like the big stuff. And what I realize is that it's in the draft that I discover the character moments, and I discover those spaces where I'm like, and now we need to stop and breathe. And I think that that's where sci-fi actually really kind of connects with those characters, is that like if you look at it and you're just like, I can't get into sci-fi, it's all ships and like weird planets and stuff like that, and you can get lost if you just think of it that way. But if you stop and look at these stories, you know, we're still getting down and having those quieter moments, and those are always, you know, I love good world building, but those are usually my favorite moments in your guys' books, are those spaces where the characters stop and connect. And that's, you know, that's still the heart of every story. And when people talk about science fiction and they're like, well, I just don't like it, you know, I can't get into it, it's totally fine. But I think that they don't always know that we're doing the same. We're creating those same spaces for characters to grow and love and feel those human emotions. Because even when our characters aren't technically human, like we're still exploring those real human conditions. So yeah. We have like 7. I know we've only talked for like 30 minutes, but we have like 7 questions and some of them are really good. So I think I might go ahead and do some questions down here. Mysterious Galaxy has been all over here going like, asking such great questions. Let's see. I'm going to look through here. All right, let's do, what have been some of your influences for your books, be it movies, shows, other books, etc.?
I'll go first again. Oh, Alicia, do you want to go? Okay. Mine is pretty, this book is pretty great with the inspiration, because it's basically, I read a bunch of stuff about wolves and dog sleds. So Call of the Wild, Julie of the Wolves, The Red Fox, like all of those stories you read at least I read in middle school, that were all about like frontier exploration and wolves and nature. Those are all a little bit in this story. Obviously, they've been updated to represent our sort of current world where we are destroying it slowly. That was most of my inspiration. I love also just like fun sci-fi TV shows. Dark Angel is an old one. Dollhouse is a fun one.
Dark Angel.
Like my favorite. Anyway, this has some Dark Angel nods that people that have watched it would recognize very quickly. But yeah, lots of inspiration all over the board.
Alicia, you go. Yeah.
I got it. I was thinking about Dark Angel and how long it's been.
That's so long. That. Oh man.
Oh god, I watched it like last week.
Wow. Brings me back. Wow. Now I'm like, I love Star Wars. I love Star Trek. I loved The Mandalorian a lot recently. My 8-year-old is really into it now, and she's like pretty sure she's gonna be a Mandalorian, which I was like, but it's like, then she thinks she can now, if she learns martial arts, she can control the wind. So it's like it just changes with her every other day. But we're trying to like connect on science fiction and things. So I have been watching. I did not get to watch the new Star Trek Discovery season because I am in Germany and it's not easy. But I just started The Expanse recently. I just started. I never saw it. I was like, it's really dark. Like I can't see that well. So I was like, what's going on? And I don't know who this is. But then I just finished the first season like on Friday. I was like, what? So now I'm into it, I guess. I think they're really fascinating. I love a lot of the stuff that's happening recently, like Foundation, which I thought was very I don't know how they pulled it off where it felt quiet sci-fi, even though it's epic. I felt that was a really amazing kind of feat. I'm not sure still how I feel about it, but I like it. I don't know. It's really, it's up in the air. I've really enjoyed a lot of stuff. And again, it always comes back to X-Men for me, which was like that thing where I was like, yeah, I have to write people with powers because that's awesome, and I want to be Storm so bad. So basically, all of my books are like a take on Blade Runner, Fifth Element, X-Men, and other stuff thrown in between.
Nice. Yeah.
Go Blair.
There we go. y'all have amazing tastes, is what I want to say so far. But yeah, for me, there was some classic cyberpunk like Neuromancer by Gibson and like Blade Runner, obviously the classics. And then I've always really enjoyed like ensemble-driven sci-fi, like Mass Effect, Firefly, The Expanse, and that was the biggest thing for me. Was just like I want to capture how these games and shows make me feel. I want to have something that feels like the found family kind of space opera element, but that feels really fast-paced and kind of tight. So yeah, just that. I wouldn't say I have a lot of explanation for mine, but yeah, those are my few influences.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I tend to, when I first think of influence, think a lot about visual media, like movies and TV and stuff like that. I would say that I drew a lot from Starbuck, from the Battlestar Galactica reboot when it came to writing Alyssa Farshot, because I was absolutely obsessed with that Starbuck and how messy and problematic, but also amazing she was. And I really wanted to pull a lot of that into the main character of these books. And there's a lot of other influences in there too. Obviously, there's like Star Wars and Star Trek and those sort of those were my first like memories of science fiction, is running around playing Chewbacca in the backyard, because I either wanted to be a horse, but there were no horses in the cast, so I wanted to be Chewbacca. And I could do the Wookiee noise. So, and everybody else is like, I'm Leia, and I'm like, I'm the big hairy beast. And Star Trek, which I remember, like my first crush was Captain Picard and all of that stuff. So yeah, I feel like there's a whole lifeline of little things that I drew with to sort of hodgepodge in these worlds. I will also say that a specific book that I feel like I drew from is there's a science fiction book called The Best of All Possible Worlds by Karen Lord that was recommended to me. And it's really not like Crown Chasers or Thronebreakers at all. It's this quiet science fiction novel, but I really took a lot from how she used these sci-fi tropes, but it was so grounded in these people and in this exploration of diaspora and what it means to belong and build a home. And I highly, highly recommend it because I think was really incredible. Steve, I'm not doing the Chewy voice because I can't anymore. I can't do the Chewy voice anymore. I've tried as an adult and I lost the ability somewhere along the way. Steve is calling me out in the chat. But yeah, so I would say that those are, I'm going to move right on to the next question. We're just going to pretend Steve did not ask me that. Actually, we're going to do one of Steve's questions in here. It says, as real life technology gets more and more advanced, things we used to only read, dream about are now reality. As sci-fi writers, does that pose any problems for you when trying to come up with new and interesting concepts or ideas? I think that is a very good question.
It's hard.
Anyone want to start? Yeah.
I try to go the Star Wars route where I like don't reference modern technology because I want people to not feel like it's familiar. You know, I don't want phones. I don't want social media. I want people to be immersed. And so for me, like there is some cool tech, you know, like there's I use holograms for my computers and stuff like that, which is slowly advancing and getting really cool. So there is that element that I'll try and include. And then some of it I just ignore entirely.
I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that is one thing that I wish I had pushed further in both my books. Like it's supposed to be this weird place where there's space travel, and I don't think I went far enough because I'm looking at stuff and going like, yeah, that could be something we have right now. That I'm not sure that feels like a far-flung future.
But I think it works.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's tough, I feel like. And Claire or Alicia, please just flag me to stop talking. I feel like it's tough to push further and to sort of like go, oh, we're going to go so much further from the technology we know now without taking it, but like you still need to be able to ground it. Like people need to be able to ground themselves. So it's towing that line between we're trying to set it far in the future, so let's imagine what technology looks like, and also going, we don't want to get so out there that people are like, I don't even know what's going on and I can't even visualize it. So like there's still that, you have to still have those touchstones.
Yeah, and you need the tech, we all have said, our stories are more on the fi than the sci. And so for me especially, it's like it's more important that the story of the character comes across than like super cool tech. I mean, I basically have like a lightsaber ripoff. Like, it's fine. People know what it is. You know, it's not, for me, it's more important to focus on the characters. And I don't want people to get too distracted if they like had a lot of modern tech that we would recognize in there.
I never really care. Like, I do not care. And I mean that in the best possible way. There are a lot of things that have been created that we don't know about. There are a lot of things that are created and you see it in the new Marvel movie or something and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. I don't care, because we are, in some ways we may be the future, in some ways we may be the present. We're creating for me, I'm creating an entire, new race of species. So their technology is going to look different and feel different. And if it's similar to ours, that's pretty cool. Again, there is that line, like Rebecca said, where it's like, I can create so much and I can have fun with so much, but I can't create so much that it loses that accessibility again. Or it's like a real slog and you have to explain how something works over and over and over again. So I have a lot of fun. Hopefully I come up with good things. There are some things I've created that I think that's such a genius thing. And then there are some things where I'm like, really, Alechia? So it's always I'm always trying to see what I'm going to learn. And it helps that we consume a lot of media at the same time, so we can kind of keep that in mind and stay up to date. And again, we've read a lot of these books. We've read a lot of stuff and a lot of sci-fi that's coming out. And you can go completely in a totally different direction and it would still be fine. I don't think you have to worry too much about the contemporary meeting up with, the future. I don't think you have to worry about that.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those points you've brought up. I think that as technology advances, like I mentioned some of this earlier, but you do run the real possibility of your book seeming a little bit dated, because if something feels like it's advancing really quickly now and you have a book that's set like 100, 200, 1,000 years in the future, then it's like, oh, wow, obviously this is going to have progressed beyond where we're at now, like to a much higher degree. It's going to be a bigger part of their world, and it could even transform the society that they live in. And that's where it's really tough balancing act, especially in YA, when I think your stories need to feel a little bit more grounded and a little bit more accessible. And there's very much a push-pull, I think, between like, how far do I want to advance technology to the point it transforms society, and how much do I want readers to be able to recognize this society and to be able to identify with the characters and how they're interacting with the technology around them. So I think that it's hard because you can only choose one or two things to really put a speculative angle on. Like I think it's really hard to say like, oh yes, we have spaceships capable of like terraforming other worlds, but we also have technology that's transformed literally every single other aspect of human life to the point where society would be kind of unrecognizable. And that's where it's really important to keep in mind that like we're writing for a contemporary audience. We're writing for people who are going to be relating to it and understanding it now. And like, do I think people are going to be reading my book in 20, 30 years? Probably not. I don't think it's going to be culturally relevant then. But I think that what is most important is just to say, this is where we're at now. This is where we could be at in the future. Here's how we want to think about this technology that's evolving. And it does, like new technologies do leave a lot of interesting room to say, okay, how could we put an angle on this for future stories and new sci-fi books? But otherwise, I don't think unless it's something that's fundamentally transforming our society right now, I don't think it's going to be huge as far as fiction and sci-fi.
Okay, let's see. This one's a little bit lighter, a little less in depth. Are there any sci-fi or fantasy worlds you wish you could live in? That's a nice break from the You don't want to race across an ice planet?
No, I hate the cold. I would die. literally freeze to death in 10 seconds. I froze to death taking a picture of my book in the snow 5 days ago. Any world where the climate is temperate is good for me. Sorry, kind of.
Alechia, Claire, do you guys got one that you want to live in?
Thetis from Dragon Age.
Oh, Dragon
It's
Age.
so good. I love it. It's just so multifaceted, and there's so many gorgeous places to explore. And I don't know, it's just a fantasy world that I love, even though it draws on a lot of other fantasy worlds. It's just, the games are so immersive and pretty, and it's like, I could see myself just living here. It's so nice. I love it.
Just not that swamp with the zombies. Just not that one.
I guess if I had to choose, I would live in Wakanda.
Nice.
I feel like I'd be allowed in, so I'm like, sure, I'll be there. I'll be the librarian.
Oh my gosh.
Or I'll be a pastry chef. I don't know. They'll do something there. It'll be
Now I need you to write a story about the librarian in Wakanda. Like, that would be amazing. They're like, yeah, all this big stuff is going, but somebody is in there organizing the books.
Hey,
I
go
mean,
bug Marvel.
they have to exist. You can
Yeah.
only do so much. Technology is fantastic, and we can do a lot, but the basics will always sort of be the same. How we're always going to have to communicate with each other. We're always going to have to keep records of what we've done and what we know. And I think even like 1,000 years from now, there will be records of all of our books and, all the things that we do and what we're, these things, they don't go away. Everything is, we build as a civilization by remembering what we've done and how to not do any of the mistakes we've already made. Hopefully. So I think when we were, like going back to this last question, we're worried about, our technology not matching or already matching up. It's like, sure, it could be the exact same thing, but it could be a lot better. It could be, sleeker. It could be more modern. It could be all these different things. It could do things in a totally different way. And the fact remains that we will have to do some of the things the same exact way. Because, if it's not broke, why would you fix it? You're just going to make it nicer. So that's where I'm at. That's not really the answer, but it is Wakanda. There we go.
Yeah. Wakanda. I love that. I absolutely agree, because it doesn't matter how far we evolve. I think humans will always tell stories. So it's like, it's how we've told stories for as long as we've been around. So that's how we communicate. It's one of our foundational concepts of that we can understand across cultures and everything. I would say I would probably choose next gen era Star Trek, because it's like, everything cool, right? We're not at war with the Klingons. That's good. And like, it's socialist as hell. So you can just be like, I'm going to pursue this. And there's no concept of money. And you can just go and like, you can join Starfleet, or you can still run a restaurant. And I'm like, yes, that sounds great. I want to live in the Star Trek future where it's like, we don't actually have money. We just go do stuff. I'm like, yes, thank you. I will. All right, let's see. All right, here's a good one. Have you ever been swayed to change a plot point of yours to cater to the demands or theories of readers? Or also, I would say maybe also add to this, have you ever had, especially from the sci-fi perspective, have you ever had to alter your sci-fi-ness to sort of make it a little more marketable, fit into like sort of a neater slot publishing wise?
I feel really fortunate because I haven't had to change anything like that yet. I know some people are disappointed that the race in my book doesn't start until like the midpoint, and then people were expecting it to start earlier, but that's not the story, so sorry. Anyway, go ahead, Alechia.
No. No, I do not. I mean, I get a lot of hate mail. I think it's worth noting that I get a lot quite a bit. I don't like Black people in sci-fi. I don't like queer people in sci-fi. I don't like fat characters in sci-fi. I don't like all these things in sci-fi. And you're like, oh, okay. And what am I gonna do? I'm really at a point in my life where I'm just kind of doing whatever I want, and I feel very good about that. And thankfully, Inkyard has been all right. Like, oh, okay, Alechia, that sounds fine. And I don't give it a lot of thought. Sometimes I get like, Alechia, you could have done better pacing here, or, and you sit there and you think about it, and you're like, damn, could I have? I don't know. And I can get in my own head about that, and I can read. I can have people do send me reviews quite often, and it's like, it really makes you think about your entire life choice, like, like all of your life choices, and you're like, wait, should I be in here? Should I be doing this? But if I sat there and I doubted myself every single time a reader said, you can't do this, this can't happen, I don't want to see this, I can't relate because these characters aren't, white or whatever, I would never have a book. And that said, I did write this book, and I wrote it the way I wanted to write it. And there is an audience who liked it for what it was. And there are teens who read it, and they feel very seen and happy about it. So, no, I cannot allow all those outside voices in my head, no matter how, pernicious they are, or persistent. But thankfully, I have people who support me. I have great editors. I have great friends. Like, Rebecca has helped me with the Kindred. It's true. And like, I would not be here if I didn't have the support. And so I don't let that in. I think you have to shut the door, and sometimes good things will come to you, and sometimes you'll be like, feel reassured by it. But otherwise, I have to keep a separation from it, or it will like be the end of me.
Claire, have you had any something like that where you felt like you had to edit down either for readers or for the market, or?
Not really, because I only have one book out at the moment. I have thought a lot about like potential sequel, because that's my option book, which is written, and I knew that I wanted to have at least a draft written before my arcs went out for book one, because I was really scared that once it was out there and it was in other people's hands and they were reading it and leaving reviews for it, then it's no longer really my story, and I was worried that those perceptions would change my perception of the story, and that I would kind of lose sight of it. So that was an important thing that I felt I had to do. I was like, I just have to write this, even if it's just for me. I want to do it while it's still mine. It's still my world. And I have gotten a little bit of feedback and reviews. Like, I think that it's most helpful to see the positive reviews. If some of them do come with a few caveats, like, oh, I wish this could have been better. It's like, those are the feedback I want. These are clearly the people who are my target audience. They're the people who the story resonates with, but maybe there's a few things that they wanted done a little bit differently. And those are the things that I consider most when thinking about revising. So I'm not trying to please everybody, but I do want to take into account the opinions of people who clearly connect with the story most. And like, those are the people that I want the story to resonate with. So I haven't really changed anything in that sense, but I have worked out a few kinks in revisions just based on what I've heard, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, I feel like it's always a bit tricky, because especially if you're writing like a series or whatever like that, like you want to keep connecting with the readers who connected with the first book. And I would say that with Thronebreakers, that was a concern, but I also don't know that I edited what I wanted to do with it, because, and I've seen that, and it doesn't bother me to read reviews, because most of the time I'm like, this was your experience reading the book, it's cool, like whether you liked it or didn't like it. I also like, that's very different from what, for example, people actually emailing you and being racist in your mentions, like Alechia's dealing with. But like, I would say that I knew that the main character was going to be more difficult to love in the second book. that Alyssa Farshot was going to be more difficult to connect with, and her choices were going to be even messier. And some people definitely, did not like that, and they didn't like the second book as much because they're like, well, Alyssa's just really difficult. I'm like, yeah, she's difficult. I don't know what to tell you. She's been through some shit, and she's gonna be a hot mess. She was a hot mess before. I don't know if you noticed, but she tends to throw herself off of things, whether or not it's a good idea. So yeah, I think it's, you want to deliver on the promise of the premise. You don't want to like, you want to be all like, this is the premise, and you want to like fulfill that, but you can't try to write to a specific audience, because you're never going to get there. Like, you're never going to succeed at that. You have to write your story for you, and then the readers who love it will find it. Like they found Sound of Stars, and like how they found City of Shattered Light, and how they're going to find Cold and Night, and they're going to find the kindred, and they're going to feel seen, and they're going to have that connection. And if it's one person who carries it forward with it close to their heart, that makes all the difference. That's the whole reason why we do this. We're like, I read this story and you liked it. All right, let's see. We're almost at the 4 o'clock mark, so let's do one more. We'll do what have you been reading lately, and then sort of reading or watching, whatever you've been what kind of stories you've been consuming, and then what you got coming up next, if you want to pitch that. And this one I'll do clockwork again. We're going to start with Alicia. I'm doing my clockwork.
So, I told you I'm watching The Expanse now. I'm on season 2. It's going well in between everything. Let's see. I wrote a middle grade foodie fantasy, which comes out 2023 from Fivel and Friends, and that's pretty cool. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about the other things I've written, so I don't think I can. I have stuff going on.
You're busy.
I got to write. I'm doing all right. I'm hopefully gonna be around for a while, maybe. I mean, I'm trying. We'll see.
You're gonna be around for a while. I'm gonna make sure
it. I wrote a short story for the Sandra Mitchell's Out There into the Great Gay Yonder, Queer Yonder. And that was really cool, which is called Beauty Sleep, and it is a sci-fi look at Sleeping Beauty. It's really bizarre, and I think you might like it. And I wrote another one called We Are Stardust, and that is coming out in Absolutely Normal, and I don't know when that comes out, but it's coming out, and I think it's a beautiful story. So yeah, there's stuff going on, and we're all having a good time, right? We're all doing our best right now. We're all doing our best.
That's true. Meg, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you working on?
Well, I was revising my sequel to Wolves, so I wasn't really consuming much of anything except Dark Angel. I can't tell you why. But then luckily I finished and turned those in, and then I went on vacation this last week, so I was able to read, and I read The Kindred, and I read Crown Chasers and Throne Breakers, and they were amazing. Still everybody buy them. I could talk about all of those books forever now. I loved Claire's book as well, and I may or may not have something in my inbox from her to read, so I'm pretty excited about that too. I also read The Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder, who is debuting the same day as me. It's fantastic. I hadn't had a chance to finish it. It was amazing. It's like a gender swapped Sleeping Beauty meets Indiana Jones. It's fantastic. So yeah, I haven't been able to watch much new TV because of revisions, but I did start season 2 of The Witcher today, and that was exciting. Dark Angel and The Witcher. That's all I got.
That's a combination. I like it.
That's weird mix.
Is that me?
Yes.
Okay.
What are you reading, watching, and working on?
So I'm a really slow writer, so it takes me a lot of mental energy to shift gears as far as like story worlds, because I like to really build stuff up. So I did mention that I've been quiet about the fact that my sequel's an option book, but I'm just really excited about it, and it's just something that I've been working on. I had to do it for my own personal closure, so that was something that I wrapped up another revision on recently. So hopefully that's getting pitched within the next month or so. So yeah, sequel to City of Shattered Light is what I was writing. I also have two other. One is a dark fantasy, and it's about halfway finished. I'll pick that up soon, I hope. And then the other one is a post-apocalyptic monster hunting book that I don't want to say too much about because it's still a fairly new idea, and I'm excited about it. Yeah, I'll send it to you, Meg. once I have something, it's gonna be a long time. But as for shows, I actually just started watching the Cowboy Bebop reboot because I know it just got canceled, but I liked the anime a lot, so I was like, I'll just give it a chance. It's fun so far. I also have been watching Hawkeye here and there, off and on, because it's been coming out every week. I'm enjoying it. As for books, I finished Mexican Gothic recently, and horror is not usually my wheelhouse, but I really enjoyed it. It was very good anti-colonial spin on Gothic horror, and it was really well done. It's a pretty quick read. It's spooky and also feminist. And as of now, I'm working on the arc of Ren Hutchings' Under Fortunate Stars. I'm rereading it, and it is super good. It is a very twisty, Firefly-esque time travel space opera, and it is a lot of fun. So that one comes out in March of next year, I think. I don't want to get that wrong, but it's very good. You should check it out. Ren Hutchings.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say
sorry, Ren. Ren's in the chat. Hi, Ren. Ren is in the chat. I'm sorry. Yes, she said it's on me.
Oh, awesome. I'm gonna have to look that one up. I've been kind of on an arc kick recently, so both of my books that I'm gonna mention that I've read recently are ones that are coming out soon. In the 2022, one of them is Home Field Advantage by Dahlia Adler, and I'm not generally a huge contemporary reader, but I always I do always read some, and Dahlia is almost always one that I read. It's a queer contemporary about a cheerleader and a female football player, a female quarterback who gets this quarterback position at her high school after the previous quarterback got in a drunk driving accident. And and then they're kind of it's that sort of they're instantly ooh, we like each other, but also, the quarterback is trying to fit in as a female quarterback in this football obsessed school, and the cheerleader has her own. It was very good, and it's always, her voice is so great with contemporary. And then also I'm just finishing up From Dust Aflame by Rebecca Coffindaffer, which is a contemporary fantasy steeped in Jewish mythology that it also queer. There's a theme to my reading that I thought was so interesting and atmospheric, and there's times that characters are walking somewhere and there's woods, and I'm like, what's going to happen in the woods? So I really, really loved both of those. My spouse and I have been watching Wheel of Time, which I have been quite enjoying. I did not get very far in the books, but I really loved Wheel of Time. I've been really liking this. Rosamund Pike is amazing and incredible. And they made some choices in the last two episodes with her character that I'm just very excited about. And also still obsessed. I watched this last month, but I'm still obsessed with Arcane on Netflix. And if you watch Arcane on Netflix, I really hope that my current project sells, because then I can hand it to you. And if you liked Arcane, I also have a steampunk science fantasy about sisters and punching things that you might enjoy. So yes, working on an Arcane-esque type YA science fantasy, still obsessing about Arcane, the TV show, but also watching Wheel of Time. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hi, Nick.
Hello. I just figured I'd pop in since we're at the mark. And what great discussions you all had. My goodness.
It was so much fun.
Yes, thank you everyone who tuned in. I am so sorry to have to cut it here, but alas, we're out of time. But before we all go, where can everyone find you on the social medias?
Oh God. Nowhere. We're all hiding. We're all hiding from the social medias.
I'll type mine in the chat. Mine is hey, it's Meg.
Meg.
Because that's how I type everything with lots of them.
I'll type mine.
That's it on all of them.
Yeah, I'm at Call Me Bex. I'm gonna put that in. Call Me Bex on Twitter. And Rebecca Coffindaffer on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter much anymore, but I sort of loiter around Instagram sometimes. So, I guess probably my last name's kind of a beast. So there. Nope, I spelled it wrong. That's the one. Nailed it.
God.
Nailed it in
Yes.
2. All right.
Perfection.
Claire, I think Claire, you have.
I
a
do, yeah.
TikTok, don't you?
Claire Winn author.
It's really good.
And you're
Thank
really
you.
cool on TikTok, so make sure you.
Yeah, Claire Winn author on Insta and TikTok, and on Twitter I'm Atomic Pixie because I'm stubborn and I refuse to change my Twitter. My Twitter is
That's fair.
not just publishing stuff; it's just me posting nonsense and cosplay and general everything. So I just haven't changed it. So I kind of laugh every time a professional account has to tag that on Twitter, and it's fine.
I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to bid everyone adieu. Don't forget, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the buy books and get signed personalized book plates. Rebecca, Meg, and Claire, all 3 of them are going to be offering signed or personalized book plates if you wish, within reason for the personalization. Alechia will be offering signed book plates for her book. So please go ahead and get those if you haven't already put in your orders. And with that, everyone, I'm going to bid you adieu. And have a great day or evening wherever you're all at. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.